Thank you for having me. So as Jay promised, we have an AI talk, but it's actually more about the intersection of cloud native and AI. As you can see, the clever embedding of AI in the cloud native name here. So maybe it's cloud N-AI-tive or something like that. But just wanted to talk about, one of the interesting, my favorite kinds of talks at KubeCon are always end user talks, always understanding kind of what problems are people facing out in the field, what novel solutions are they using to solve them. And the interesting thing being, CEO of an infrastructure as code company, you talk to a lot of people building stuff in the cloud. And sometimes it kills me to see everybody sort of recreating the same wheel over and over again. But it's definitely interesting learning. And I think one of the trends over the last 2 years really has been people using cloud native to build AI solutions. We work with folks like OpenAI, NVIDIA, Snowflake, Pinecone, a lot of the leaders in the space. And I'm going to set a timer. It is a quick 10-minute talk, and I want to make sure everybody has their time. So I think AI and cloud native is interesting from two perspectives. One, the way that cloud native enables the current set of AI architectures to exist. It's actually mind-blowing to me how many people are using Kubernetes for AI workloads, massive scale. And I'll talk a little bit about that. One actually could wonder, would the current wave of AI innovation have happened if it weren't for laying the foundation of cloud native from 2017 through 2021, which is when kind of the AI stuff picked up. So a lot of the work that we've been doing. So I guess you could say we're all to blame for the AI revolution. But the other part that's really exciting to us is applying AI to the space of cloud native. How do we manage things? How do we write cloud native applications? How do we secure them? Things like that. And so I'll talk about the first now, which is how are we seeing cloud native powering the AI revolution? And when I hear AI, I literally think infinite compute, infinite data. And that's kind of large scale. The era of 2 virtual machines and a database is long gone at this point. We really need elasticity in the cloud. We need solutions that scale from 1 node to 10,000 to, as you'll see, far more than that. And data. These, vector databases, the sort of scale that we see is beyond anything we could have imagined, even just 5 years ago. And again, I think cloud native to, enabling a lot of that to transpire. So it's an actual conversation I recently had with a customer. Get on the call. This is typical one of these discovery calls. You want to hear, what are you struggling with? How can we help? And they're like, well, let me tell you. First of all, we spin up so many GPU-loaded Kubernetes clusters that they don't all fit into an Azure account. So we first have to spin up, a few dozen Azure accounts. I think they might have said a few hundred, actually. And then within each of those, we need to spin up Kubernetes clusters, manage GPU node pools, and go to town. And they're like, yeah, so we started with bash scripting. That didn't really work. We kind of moved to other YAML-based solutions. That didn't work. So we started templating our YAML, and then we got ourselves wedged. So there's got to be a better way, right? And that's sort of where infrastructure as code comes in. I'm obviously a little biased here, but lots and lots of NVIDIA here. They just released earnings, so they're not doing too bad, based on this whole thing as well. But again, that I just want to emphasize the amount of cloud native we see amongst the companies. Most innovative companies really are going all in on Kubernetes. So that's where infrastructure as code can help. And this is the closest to a sales pitch you're going to get. But whether it's Terraform or a Crossplane or CloudFormation, pick your choice here, or ARM or Bicep. I see Lucky in the audience here, so get a shout out to Microsoft, of course. But one of the benefits of Pulumi is you get to use a language. So some of these AI companies, the fact you can, just write a Python script that spins up dozens of Azure accounts and deploys tons and tons of GPUs into them. The fact that 30 lines of Python can be responsible for tens of millions of dollars of cloud spend may be terrifying, but for some it's exciting. And I think, we think of all these cloud services as building blocks, right? So it's kind of interesting. You might think of AI as just one homogeneous thing. But it turns out AI workloads are quite diverse, right? Some people are building distributed data stores. Some people are doing the training with large-scale compute required to do that. Some people are doing large-scale serving, which is large-scale compute, but largely homogeneous. You're really just having lots of nodes that have all the models on them, and you just need the memory, the compute, the scale. seeing a lot of self-managed stuff. I would say 3 years ago, most of the people I talked to doing Kubernetes were trying to build private clouds with the hope of getting to public cloud and, a lot of like digital transformation with Global 2000s. These days, by and large, most of the stuff that I see is, startups, but we still, and AI companies specifically, but there is a lot of self-managed Kubernetes clusters going on. And obviously the application tier is front and center as well. But underpinning all of this, and you can sort of see if you squint in the back here, the lovely CNCF landscape diagram that has become a meme at this point. It is difficult. So, the previous talk, I totally agree. There's so many building blocks out there, so many customers asking what are best practices. Surely everybody's doing the same thing. And the reality is that kind of, sort of, but in very subtly different ways. But that's kind of part of the power as well. If you think of each of these as a building block, you can build these incredible architectures. And, I mentioned some customers of ours earlier, they're running so fast and building so fast, they don't really have time to even slow down to think about, well, what is the theoretical best thing to do? They're just trying to get to market, build stuff, scale stuff, and they'll deal with it later. So probably a lot of tech debt being created right now as well. And I think another common theme is at that speed, self-service is incredibly important. So, you look at Gartner's trends for 2024, one of the top 10 is internal developer platforms. So definitely within the enterprise, it's real. But when you look at these AI companies, literally it's time to market. So they want to get developers just shipping code to prod. They want their data scientists to be able to spin up new environments on demand and run experiments and build new models and train new models. And so we see things like Backstage. We see, lots of parts of the CNCF stack are facilitating this. I would not say this is a solved problem. I went on a customer tour last year, and I think I went to 7 meetings back to back, and people were like, well, we're building a self-serve internal portal. I'm like, so you're using Backstage? No. We built our own UI. We're not UI developers, but we wanted a point-and-click interface into, clusters and microservices, and so that's what we did. Another area of probably tech debt that's building very rapidly. I do see a fair bit of Backstage usage, though. A lot more people saying they want Backstage than doing, but I do think that project has a lot of long-term promise. So let's flip it on its head and talk about just quickly, how does AI help with cloud-native development? Well, I'm going to guess that most people in this room, when you're writing software these days, you're using one of these tools. And I put this here selfishly because maybe you never heard of Pulumi Copilot, but we have a little thing that can help you write your infrastructure as code. It can help you build cloud-native applications. But certainly, I'm in GitHub Copilot and ChatGPT all day, every day. It's really transformed the way that a lot of us build software. The funny thing is, if you told somebody 4 years ago, we're going to hook an AI up to the internet and it's going to write code for you, I think we probably would have said, baloney. And yet now with Pulumi Copilot, we're literally letting the Copilot run kube control commands and AWS CLI commands on your behalf, which may sound terrifying, sort of is, but pretty powerful as well. And I think one of the areas that AI really helps with is that CNCF diagram that I showed earlier, but even just, look at all the cloud providers. Azure has hundreds of services. AWS has hundreds of services. Each of those services has thousands of properties that can be configured infinite numbers of ways. Think of all the Helm charts in the world that you need to remember how to use. And I don't know, maybe some folks here can, whip out some Kubernetes YAML kind of off the top of their head, but I need, a reference guide for that too. So AI has really helped, understand the usage patterns in the cloud by learning over sort of the data set of what exists in the world. And that's, pretty game-changing from a time-to-market standpoint. What takes minutes used to take hours, in many cases. This is kind of interesting. This is the Pulumi bot that I was mentioning. Create a serverless AI chatbot architecture in AWS with a PostgreSQL vector database. Oh, and stick a Cloudflare CDN in front of it. Oh, no, actually put it on Azure instead of AWS. It can actually iteratively kind of walk you through that process, which is pretty useful. And it's not just us doing this, right? ChatGPT can do some of this. But, taking it a next step further, what if it wasn't just generating code? What if you could ask your AI, hey, I can't access my pod. I thought it was listening on port 8080. What's wrong? Oh, your Nginx ingress controller is misconfigured for this reason or another. Or, oh, your load balancer is missing some esoteric property that you forgot about. And what if you could just ask the AI to fix it for you? Again, terrifying perhaps, but also exciting. I think that is where we're heading. This is an example of even just like mundane things. What versions of Kubernetes am I running in the cloud and where? Are any of them out of date? Being able to have that kind of all-knowing understanding of the cloud, I think AI is really kind of bringing us there, and making cloud native even more powerful for us. So that's kind of it in a nutshell. I think, really exciting. Cloud native has enabled this entire world, and I think that's a pretty awesome thing. So thanks everybody here for everything you do in the community, and thanks for coming today.